officers get out of line intentionally. And when they do, they should be punished. But you know, when a radical jihadist who happens to be a Muslim blows up a school full of school children, we are told, don't blame all Muslims because of the acts of a few. And gosh, I agree with that. And I know you do too, Mr. President. How come the same rule doesn't apply to cops? I don't understand it. This anti-law enforcement sentiment, understandably, has resulted in lower morale among cops. Duh. It's led to massive resignations. It's led to massive early retirements. It has in my state, and it has in most other states. It turns out that when you spend years vilifying police officers and making it harder for them to do their job, some of them no longer want to stay. That's not surprising. In the city of New Orleans, we have fewer than 1,000 police officers. We need 2,000. This year alone, more than 100 police officers have already quit. That's around the same number of police officers who resigned, retired, or were fired in 2020. And these statistics are nationwide. It's not just New Orleans. The Dallas Police Department, it's down 550 law enforcement officials. In Portland, Oregon, the department is looking to fill more than 100 positions for cops. A headline from last week said, quote, as officers leave in droves, New Orleans Police Department's response times soar to 2.5 hours. That's not the way our country should work. Now, you can talk about defunding the police all day, and I don't want to paint with too broad a brush here. Not everyone does, but too many people do. But the reality is that defunding the police results in delayed responses to 9/11 phone calls. It demoralizes cops. It causes a lack of good recruits, and it causes our communities to be less safe. I don't know why this is, Mr. President. If I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. But there's some people in our society, not just in America, but throughout the world. These people are not sick. They're not mixed up. They're not confused. It's not that their mother or their father did not love them enough. They are just antisocial. I don't know why, but they are. And they hurt other people. And they steal other people's stuff. And they can't live in society. And to protect us from them, we have to have law enforcement. It's just that simple. So here's, in my opinion, Mr. President, what we do. Because it's hard not to notice that what we're doing right now is not working. I don't mean to be cruel, but a lot of Americans look around at the people who are disrespecting and defunding the police, or trying to, and the attitude of those Americans is, look, don't bother to send in the clowns, they're already here. The American people want and deserve better. What should we do? Number one, we have to empower our cops. And when they're not, when they make a mistake intentionally, when they intentionally violate their oath, they should be punished. But that's a small minority of our law enforcement officials. So we need to empower our cops. As I said, that we have too many people in positions of authority who really think cops are a bigger problem than criminals. We have to pay our cops. We've got to hire more of them. We've got to stand behind them. When they make a split-second decision, Mr. President, they shouldn't be thinking, "Oh my God, I might lose my family and my home and my job, when they act in good faith and they have to make a split-second decision, we have to stand behind them. And we have to tell our police officers to enforce all laws, not just the big ones, the little ones. And we have to get rid of the hear no evil, see no evil, prosecute no evil prosecutors. It's also important, Mr. President, that we ask ourselves another question. Why is it that so many young offenders, especially in our inner cities, why is it that so many of these young criminals are more likely to grow up and go to prison than own a home or get married? Why is that? Because that's true, and that's an embarrassment. And I'll give you one reason, Mr. President. Because their schools suck. They do. Too many of our schools are failure factories. We need to fix them. We need to find out which of our teachers can teach and pay them. We need to find out which of our teachers can't teach and either teach them how or tell them to find a new line of work. I can't recite to you, Mr. President, the first 6 presidents of the United States in proper order. But I will never forget, ever, my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade teachers. Teachers matter. We need to have no excuses schools. I believe every child can learn. I do. It's tougher for some than others, but I believe that every child can learn. And I think we need a new rule. I don't care how old you are. I don't care. You are not going to get out of the 3rd grade until you can read and write. No exceptions. None. And also, Mr. President, I think we have to give our public schools some competition. We need more charter schools. We need more school choice. We need to empower our parents. Give them vouchers. Give those public schools some competition. It'll make all of our schools better. I want to end this way, Mr. President. Look, it's hard to be a cop. It's hard to be a cop. And cops are like all the rest of us. They're not perfect. They make mistakes. But only a small percentage intentionally violate their oath. We need to empower those that abide by their oath because they're the ones keeping our community safe. Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, I suggest letting in spies. Do you think, based on your knowledge of security, that we could catch most of the spies?
Well, I yield to no one in my faith and confidence in the great work of the men and women of the FBI, but I will tell you that the Chinese counterintelligence threat is the greatest threat, certainly the greatest counterintelligence threat that we face as a country.
Right.
And the sheer number of what we would refer to as non-traditional collectors working on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party is something that is a massive resource challenge for the FBI.
That was probably an unfair question. I'm not asking you to guarantee anything. In the few seconds I have left, and begging the indulgence of our esteemed chairman, who's doing a much better job than Durbin, by the way. Oh, he's back. The Horowitz report. Can you tell me how many people you have referred for prosecution at the FBI as a result of the Horowitz report?
Well, for prosecution or for discipline?
For prosecution first. Just give me numbers because I don't want to abuse my time.
Well, the prosecution issue related to anything to do with the Horowitz report is in the hands of Inspector.
I get it. How many have you fired?
So most of the people involved in the Horowitz report are former employees. Of the ones who are current, every single one of them, even if mentioned only in passing, has been referred to our Office of Professional Responsibility, which is our disciplinary arm. Now that piece, and this is important, That piece of it, because we're cooperating fully with Mr. Durham's investigation, at his request, we had slowed that process down to allow his criminal investigation to proceed. So at the moment, that process is still underway in order to make sure that we're being appropriately sensitive to the criminal investigation.
Okay. So you've had to hold up as a result of the criminal investigation. I'm sorry I went over, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sure glad you hear Booker was just screwing everything up.
Senator Padilla, and I'm sure you'll do a better job than the previous questioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will do my best.
And with that, I yield 3 minutes to my colleague from the state of Michigan.
The gentleman is recognized. Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's been a lot of talk on the other side of the aisle, and I want to be clear. No one in this room is in the judicial branch, and no one in this room that I'm aware of is a medical doctor. If you believe that the provisions that the VA has put forward have a legal problem, you have the right to take up that case and put it through the courts. We are the legislative branch. We make laws, we pass laws. We are not judge and jury. Take it to a court if you're concerned. That is your right. In terms of making decisions on behalf of women, if you want to take a veterans bill and make it about abortion, then let's do it. What you are saying, and you're saying in front of the American people, is that you believe a veteran who has been raped, who is the victim of incest, and who is having a dangerous miscarriage does not deserve access to abortion. You are saying, unless you correct me and tell me what you believe a woman deserves to have when she has been raped, the victim of incest, or is in the middle of a dangerous miscarriage, if you can't state it, then be clear you believe in no exceptions for women, a cold, heartless, violent approach to women's health. You want to ban all abortions. That is your goal. Many of you have been open about that. And if you flip the House, we know that you will put forward a full ban on all abortion for all states. You've been clear about it. You want to turn a veterans bill into an abortion bill, let's do it. Not one of you are a medical doctor. Not one of you. What the VA guidelines say is that if you've been raped or the victim of incest or a medical professional deems that your pregnancy is a risk to your health, the one of 4 women in this country who has had a miscarriage, probably many women in this room, that you are a better judge of who gets to decide the future of their life and not a medical doctor? Who do you think you are? You are politicians. We are all on this floor elected officials and not medical professionals. If it was your wife, your daughter, who is suffering through a miscarriage, are you going to tell her she can't until her fever gets high enough, until she's bleeding harder? That's what's happening in the state of Texas right now. If that's what you want for veterans, shame on you. Shame on you. I'm sorry. We built this bill to be bipartisan. I sought your support particularly, sir. And you're making it a political issue. Shame on you. You all have pictures of veterans in your office, proud to show your pride in our veterans. It should be the most bipartisan issue in the world, and you're making it political. Shame on you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the PACT Act and my bill contained within on burn pits. Most of us here all know about Agent Orange and the horrible effects it had on our veterans in Vietnam. We also remember how long it took for Congress and the VA to respond and make sure our veterans had the care and benefits they needed. The bill we will vote on today is a landmark piece of legislation that will address the Agent Orange of the post-9/11 generation, burn pits. For anyone who doesn't already know, burn pits are used to dispose of waste on a military base, usually abroad in a combat zone, with jet fuel used to light the fuse. For years, we've used these burn pits in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. I lived near one in Iraq on 3 tours. But just as with Agent Orange, we've learned over the years that the toxins our service members have been exposed to have horrible consequences, strange cancer diagnoses, respiratory issues. They've affected millions of veterans, including in Michigan. This issue has been deeply personal to me as an Army wife and someone who lived near those burn pits while with the CIA. For years, 9/11 veterans have walked into their local VA and only request.
Time of the gentlewoman has expired.
Request 30 seconds.
I see another, yield another 30 seconds.
Gentlewoman may continue.
For years, our 9/11 veterans have walked into their local VA and only to be turned away. Madam Speaker, one of the most important things I've worked on in my short 3.5 years here is this bill. It is the biggest veterans health care bill we've passed in decades. Last week, I visited our local VA in Lansing, and they know it's coming. Another 3.5 million veterans will have access to health care because of this bill. We do important things in this body all the time, but I think fewer are more important than this one we're going to vote on today. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle